Coaching in Session.
Your exclusive destination for unparalleled personal and professional growth.
With your host, Michael Rearden.
Whether you choose to live within limits or break free, your mindset journey begins here.
Welcome, Dr. N Chanaca, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Michael. Very good. Appreciate so much being on your Coaching in Sessions.
Well, yeah, today we're going to be learning all about your work, and it's going to be based on education, parenting, and many things that I think people are always yearning to get a deeper understanding in. Because when we're young, we might have some gripes of our parents. Maybe our parents didn't let us go around the block and hang out with our kid, like with our friends in the neighborhood, the other kids. Or maybe our parents were, too smothering or too absent. And I mean, we can go down the list of what can happen with our parents in our household, or maybe even going into school and what happens in the school and what goes on during the day, the school system. And I mean, there's just so many different things and so many ways the mind is influenced and develops. And you have a wonderful background, educator, also an author, and we're going to be diving into your work just momentarily. But before we do that, could you tell us who you are, what you do, and how you help?
Well, sure, absolutely. Name is N Chanaca, and we are in a interesting part of our lives. Jane and I, we've been married for 55 years, and we have two sons. They're in their 50s. I have three grandchildren. The oldest one is 20. Then we have a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old. Jane and I, and they do live near us. They live around us and so on. So we're very involved with the family is with the grandchildren and so on, and the extended family. Yeah, we're involved. Both of us were involved in education for many years in Pennsylvania and in South Carolina. I had 42 years of experience in the public schools, and also had a Christian marriage and family practice. We ran a martial arts studio for 17 years, 700 students at any one time. And we did that for 17 years. So we have seen a lot of people, a lot of water has gone under the bridge. And of course, in the elementary schools, I not only taught kindergarten through 8th grade, actually, but I was a counselor for the last 25 years in the elementary schools. So working a lot with parents and children and programs and difficulties that occur in the schools. So yeah, lots of experiences with parenting and young parents, and certainly there couldn't be a more exciting and enjoyable subject to talk about than parenting, raising your kids. It's probably the most important thing you'll ever do. Do you have children, Michael?
I have two.
Good. What are their ages?
2 and 2 months.
Okay, so you're just moving into the storm, I guess you would say. But I mean, it's a wonderful time. Okay, it's a time you have to embrace and enjoy and so on. And there's so much fun, and it's so worthwhile. It's just unbelievable. It's your legacy. And I mean, you're definitely your legacy. Jane and I both enjoyed raising our two sons in the mountains of Pennsylvania. It's funny, we had a small home, an acre of land, but there was 10,000 acres around us, all undeveloped. So the guy who owned the 10,000 acres, he said, yeah, you can use the land, just you can cut any of the dead wood. You can enjoy and romp and, explore. There were a lot of stone rows, because it used to be old farmland, but the trees had grown up. And I mean, we're talking about from colonial times. So we would find old bottles and stuff inside the stone rows. But we lived basically isolated as far as our home was concerned. We had a huge garden. We had animals, chickens. We had a horse for a while. We had fruit trees. We had cut our own wood, firewood, and so on. And we were homesteading in a sense, a little house on a prairie kind of thing. And that's kind of the area that we were involved in. We had family around, and we were involved with our church heavily and obviously our community. But as far as the day-to-day living was concerned, it was very rural and very physical. A lot of work outside, a lot of doing stuff outside. In between going to school during the day and working, but I'm talking about summers and all that kind of things. Yeah, so we had wonderful. Jane stayed home. The first couple of years we both taught, and then we decided to have family. And we were able to at that time. Now it's very difficult for two people to stay home, two people to not work, and one to stay home. She was able to stay home, and so basically on one income, the kids were raised like that until they were about 13. The oldest was about 13 years old, and then we moved to South Carolina. And then Janie went back into the workforce, teaching, and both kids were in school and so on. So that's what brought us to South Carolina. And lots of experiences started to flow from that, parenting things. In fact, the early times that we had revolved a lot about our church, our life, the pets that we had, the animals that we had, and the family, our family that was nearby. So a little bit different than some people raised in rural or urban and city situations.
Yeah. And you brought up a lot of good points because they're definitely going to be our talking points for today. Because the people who are listening to this are definitely going to be your city folk in a sense, right? Like people who have McDonald's on their corners and they have access to all of the amenities that a big city would have. Not going to be the slow life with your mom and pop hardware store. You got Home Depot and Walmart, or like less than a mile from where you live. And it brings about a different life, though, where your boys growing up, I mean, you did it right, whether you knew it or not. Boys need that physical labor, that activity, going out, cutting wood, doing martial arts, walking the trails, climbing trees. All of those things are a necessity. But yet today, we're keeping our kids on the indoors. Look at the pandemic, COVID. They couldn't even go to the playgrounds. It was against regulation. And I'm talking about there was no other kids at the playground. I have a playground right by my house, and I couldn't even take my kids there if I wanted to. So it was one of those things. I mean, I didn't have any kids during the pandemic, but if I did, I couldn't do it regardless. And many young minds suffered because of that, because they couldn't go out and they couldn't develop in an open environment. They were so constricted and restricted, and now they're
Definitely.
inside and they have their iPads and they do the
And
remote learning
yeah, their
and
cell
they do
phones.
and their cell phones and all of these things that have a different influence on the mind. And in a sense, I'm extremely old school. Like the way you did it, I would love to do it, but then again, it's almost like you short end them if you don't teach them about technology, because most of the jobs they will have in the future are going to be technology based. So of course, yeah, you could teach them computers here and there. My kids are definitely not stuck to their devices. I mean, we're always outside, but the good majority of people, parents raising children today, they do it in a very different environment. And then, of course, in schools today, technology is an ever, growing part in a child's education, from kindergarten all the way to eighth grade, having laptops and cell phones in the classroom. And so technology plays a huge role in a child's development today. But I wanted to talk to you about the pros and the cons, from working so long in the schools, and I'm sure from working with parents and just seeing firsthand your grandkids growing up, the differences in how the children learn back then and today.
Well, you bring up such an important point, Michael, and I'm glad you did. There are so many different family situations, okay? You've got mothers raising children, you've got grandparents raising children, you've got a father raising children, you've got split families, you've got families that are not, we'll say, healthy. So there's a lot of different situations. And of course, the environment that you're in, as you've already pointed out, is important. It's very important, critical. But more critical than that, is the things that we're going to be talking about that are basic to raising children. There are some things, Jane and I have had the opportunity to travel all over the world, and it amazes to me that it doesn't matter what culture, what situation, what environment, what climate, it doesn't matter. There are things that are basic about raising children and family and marriage. They're just basic. They're basic healthy things, positive things that work. And those are the things that we probably need to be focusing on. And we'll be mentioning. I think before this program we were talking about the power of parenting. We have a program called Power Parenting. It's power because parents don't realize many times how much power they have. You have tremendous power over you and your wife, Michael, over your children. I mean, I'm talking about positive power. I'm talking about good things. Now, also, there's negative power. There's bad things that can happen in the family. But the way you treat each other in that family, the way you treat your wife, the way she treats you, the way you talk to each other, the way you talk to your children, what they hear, what they see as far as character is concerned, character traits, character development. Those things are basic. Your children know when they're being loved. They know when they're spending time with them. They know when you are listening to them and you paying attention to what they did during the day, who their friends are, what they like, what they don't like, what their strengths are, what some of their weaknesses are. They know when they are feeling this wonderful, warm kind of, I'm going to go home, mom and dad, they'll understand. I can talk to them. That's what's missing, Michael. It's not the country life. You can live in the country and be rotten parents. Okay? It's simple. All you have to do is pay attention to yourself instead of your kids. Okay? Very simple. All you have to do is be selfish. Okay? About your time with each other, with your time. All you have to do is talk trash to each other all the time because you are selfish. You are feeling selfish. You want to spend time with the boys. You want to go out at night. You don't want to, you worked hard all day. Why should you have to cook? If your attitude is in that range, you're going to have rotten kids in the country. Okay. So even though you bring up some very important things about technology and about city life and about different environments that your kids may be exposed to, you can control that. Okay, as young children, you start with young children. They're not teenagers when they're born. Okay, that takes 13 years to do that. That time between birth and teenage is so important. Okay, not that the teenage years aren't important, but if you've neglected your kids for 13 years and all of a sudden you want to jump in and be a good parent, I say good, I say tremendous. But you're going to have a lot of backwatering to do. You're going to have to lay a lot of foundation. You're going to have those kids, because those kids have been watching you for 13 years. They know how daddy talks to mommy. They know how daddy thinks. They know where daddy goes. They know all about you. And the problem is there's your legacy. Okay. Those children are your legacy. What do I mean by that? What do you think I mean by it, Michael?
Well, legacy is going to be what is going to be there after you're dead and gone.
Amen. Amen. And the funny thing about it is those seeds that you sow with your children, they will sow with their children. Okay. Now, how can I talk so confidently? Jane and I, perfect parents? No. And that's one thing I love about parenting. We'll get into that. You have many chances as a parent. And I compare it on some of the podcasts that I've been in, the host have been laughing about, is that you can compare parenting to golf. Do you play golf? Okay. You know what golf is, though. You probably have seen it, okay?
Yeah.
All right. You don't compare it to ice skating, competition ice skating, okay? In competition ice skating, you practice and practice and practice, and you get out there for the big day, the big tournament and so on. If you fall down once, and certainly twice, you're finished. That's it. You're done. But not in golf. When you play golf, you're on the first hole. There's 18 holes. You hit the ball, it goes into the woods. It's still okay. You're all right. You put another ball out there. You've got 18 holes in front of you, and you're on your second shot. Second shot goes in the trap, goes in the sand trap. You're still okay. You hit it out, it goes on the other side of the green. Maybe that hole, you get an 8 on it, and you should have had a 4. It's okay. You can go to hole number 2 because you still have a lot of golf to play. So what I'm trying to say to you simply is this. Parenting is a long game. It's not a short game. It's a long game, okay? And your children will give you chance after chance after chance after chance after chance to get it right. And if it's not getting in here, that you're trying to play the long game and that you have a legacy, and these children are going to grow up and they're going to become adults someday. They're going to talk to you like you and I are talking right now. They've got feelings and goals, and going to have people that they love outside the family, and they're going to pursue a career, and they're going to come back. And what are they going to say to you then? Okay, when you're in your 40s and your 50s and so on. And they start having children then too. What are you going to say to your grandchildren? So what I'm trying to say to you is play the long game. It's worth it to get involved with your children and work on their character. Now, there's a wonderful thing that happens here with children and raising children. And again, I told you, Jane and I are not perfect parents, but here's one thing I do know. We have good sons. And how do I know? We have good grandchildren. They're decent people, loving people, kind people. They're good students. The name of that book is Power Parenting, Nurturing Students to be Successful in the Modern World. And basically what I'm teaching is parents to teach their children certain character traits that fall over and move over into the school situation, and it comes out. And these things then combine with what I call focus skills. There's 8 things that all good students do. Teach a student how to behave and how to act and how to treat others in a school setting, and they become good. Now, not every kid is going to be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer. That's not important. But they need to be the best thing they can be with the skills that God has given them to be able to work on those skills. You don't have to go to college to be a great student, or, just being a great student makes you go to college. There's a lot of education you can get besides going to college, okay? Apprenticeships, technical schools, all kinds of other things. But you must be a good student. You must know how to be a good student. Basically, what we're talking about is character traits, and that's developed at home. Home was designed as a crucible to develop these character traits that come out in your character, then in your everyday life. And in school, certainly that's their job. School is like a job for a kid, and that's where it comes out every day. I've seen it over and over, being in the schools, and then, of course, being a parent, that this is where the rubber meets the road right there, is working on those things.
I think of there was a parent. He was talking about he had to go to a parent teacher conference, and one of the first things he said to the teacher, like, "Hi, how are you?" Of course, but then he basically said, "Okay, I'm not here to figure out what they do in school, their grades or whatever, right? I want to know about their character.
Period.
Are like, is my son or is my daughter treating other people kindly, fairly? Are they being a team player, right? Are they being a good member of the classroom?" And that's what he wanted to talk to the teacher about. It wasn't, okay, oh, I got to yell at my kid because he got a F on English or something like that, or he wasn't practicing for the spelling, or he was fooling around during art class or something. Like, all of those things are, kids are going to be kids. But at the same time, like, what you teach them, and then when you allow them to go to school, that's their first bit of the real world. They're, the good and the bad, right? Because bullying is a bad aspect, but it can also create more resilient children if they go through that type of bullying. So it's not so much of always fighting their battles for them, but allowing them to, be equipped to say, what, I'm able to fight my own battles. And they say, when a parent does too much for their children, they're robbing their child's self-esteem, because maybe that parent has low self-esteem. So they feel good when they take the self-esteem, fighting for their kids and things like that. They're like, okay, well, my kid is suffering. I feel good that I protected them. But then again, now you're robbing their self-esteem, because imagine if you gave them the ability to fight their own battles, and they overcame it. They were like, wow, look at what I can do. So it's not so much of always telling them, oh, you're so smart, you're so, powerful, like, they already are self-aware of what they're capable of. And so I wanted to get into the conversation now of, like, this, this power parenting, because we can get back to the basics of building the character of love, loving our children and doing all of the groundwork. But now they're faced with the dilemma of the real world, because the real world might be an obstacle for them, right? Because maybe they're being kind and someone's being hateful, or there's someone who is doing something that might be against the teachings of the mom or the dad or the grandparents or whoever.
Right.
Because like you have 2 or 3 generations now of strong children and adults coming in with emotionally stable minds. But we can look at a generation of what the world is today and how fragile people are today.
Okay. You're leading right into some of the most important things. Children go to school. Of course, sometimes they're in preschool, even at 2 or 3, and they're learning about others and about what we call a teacher, a leader, someone who's telling them what to do. And you can even at that age start to talk about the things they need to do to be happy in school, to be happy at their daycare, to be happy at their preschool. Let me give you a little test here. Research has proved that there's at least 8 things that children do to show that they are good students in the classroom. In a classroom, we're not talking about tutoring here one-on-one. Most school is in a class. There's a couple other people. There's kids. There might be 15, there might be 20, and there's usually a teacher or maybe 2 teachers. But what are they doing that demonstrates to the teachers that they are right on, that they're excellent students, they're good students? What do you think they may be? What are some of the skills that they are using that the teacher can tell?
Patience, yeah,
Okay.
sitting quietly, patience, eye contact,
Go
raising
ahead.
hands, following directions.
Good.
I mean, we can keep going. I don't want to
Okay.
mess up your 8.
You're hitting, you're hitting them. Listen, here's number 1, okay? Top of the list. I will listen, obey, and trust my teacher. It's all good students know they have to do this. Now, again, remember, I come from a martial arts background, okay? And I was fortunate enough to go to Japan on a Fulbright scholarship, okay, when I was working and so on. And in Japan, the purpose of the trip was to be there for a month and a half, and they picked 2 teachers from every state. So we had 100 educators go, and we went to elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, businesses to absorb the culture in Japan. Okay. And when I was in Japan, I was in a 2nd grade classroom there for a while, visiting, observing, and so on. There are 35 students in that classroom. Teacher was teaching and kids were raising their hands and everything was going fine. All of a sudden, she got called to the door and she had to go out into the hallway. And she picked 2 students. They were right there near the doorway. And she said to him in Japanese, I want you to continue with the class. Now, in Japan, in the elementary schools, a teacher has to have a blackboard that always is prepared in some way, that if there was an emergency, the children can go and continue to teach the class. So these 2 kids went up and they started to teach the class. I thought to myself, oh, I can't believe this. I can't speak Japanese. There's 35 kids in here and she just shut the door and she's somewhere down the hallway. What would I do if there's a problem? There was no problem, Michael. They went on just as if she was still in the room. That went on for about 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. She came in, they bowed to her, sat back down, and the class continued. When I got done with that, everyone asked me back here in the United States, educationally, did you have any culture shock when you went to Japan? I said, yes, I did. I came back to the United States and said, what in the world are we doing in the public schools in America? When 2 kids can work with 33 students and for 15 minutes, just as if the teacher didn't leave the room. I will listen, obey, and trust my teachers, number one, okay? I wrote the Super Student program that was published nationwide after that, and that rolled into what now we're talking about, power parenting, okay? The Super Student program is a program to teach teachers to teach their students how to be good students. I think we need to go to the parents and have them work on these things. Number two, I will raise my hand to speak. This is research based. I think you hit that one. Number three, I will think along with the speaker. Whether the teacher is speaking or whether another student is speaking, you should follow and listen, and maybe follow up with a question, okay? Actively, I think you said eye contact and actively following along. All good students do those three things. I will be prepared for my work every day. Prepared. I will give my best. All good students do that. They're not perfect, but they give their best and they learn from their mistakes. I will I will work out problems with others. I think you mentioned that about the guy who came in to ask about his kid and so on. I will work out problems with others, and I will have a positive, healthy attitude. Positive, healthy attitude. What does that mean? That means thankfulness. Thankfulness. I always used to tell our kids, and Jane, of course, certainly said the same thing, and our grandchildren, this simple thing. Listen, you're going to school for one reason. Do you know what that reason is? The teacher knows something that you don't know. That's why you're going. She knows more than you do. You're going to learn from her. You're not going to teach her anything. She's going to teach you. That's what you're going there for. And so you need to be thankful. There's a reason why they bow in the martial arts. And as you know, probably, there's always a great respect for teachers in the martial arts because they know things that can save your life. They know they love you. They care for you. And they want to show you things you can do to save your life and to save other people's lives. So that's a different point of view. As a teacher, as a student, then, you're grateful, you're thankful, you're positive, you're always reaching out and grabbing all this wonderful stuff that the teacher has. Now, does that mean you have to like every single teacher you have? No. In the elementary school, it's a little bit different. Teachers should be warm and loving and kind, absolutely. And if a parent is thinking out there now in your audience, boy, my second grade child hates her teacher, and that teacher's a pain in the neck. She's terrible. She's grumpy. Well, parent, here's what you need to do. Go in and speak with the teacher first, okay? Try to resolve that with the teacher. If you can't get anywhere, get another teacher. Go to another classroom. If you can't find anyone in the school in second grade, usually they have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, get another school, okay? But get out of there. These kids, your child's important. And if you have a teacher, it's ruining your kid's life, get that person out of your kid's life. You see what I'm saying? Now, Michael, you could probably I know you love your children. If you had a teacher was talking trash to her or disrespectful or was constantly a pain in the neck and putting your kid down, wouldn't you say something?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And you should. So, but generally speaking, I'm talking general, not 100%, okay? But I'll tell you, most of the teachers that I've worked with, they're loving, they were kind, in elementary school now, very critical, probably more important than high school, okay? I mean it. Once you know how to learn, you can learn from anyone. You can learn anywhere. You can learn on a computer, and you can learn in all the stuff that we can do with technology. But it's very good to be in a group and have someone lead you and have someone that you admire. But through college or through whether you're in college or technical school or anything, you're going to meet people, teachers that you're learning from them. They have things to learn, but you don't really like them. That's okay. It's fine. You have to finish that class. You're going to do your best. What? Not just for him, but for yourself, okay? Your family and yourself. You're trying to better yourself. So you can put up with that for a while. Just do what he tells you to do. You get my point? It's a different attitude, but it comes from home. It comes from parents thinking like that, loving their children, and teaching their kids character development like honesty, perseverance, working hard, caring for others, being loving, being kind, being thoughtful. See, those are the things that make a good student. As a result of those things demonstrated in the classroom, you learn. Learning is natural. You don't have to teach anyone to learn. You have to teach them how to behave and act so that learning is optimized. So now they're listening and they're learning from the teacher. You don't like that teacher, but what she's saying is true. I read about it in the book, and then Bobby over here, he's got a good comment. That's interesting. See, you're learning, okay? And that's wonderful. That's what it's all about. So that's basically what we're trying to get into in a nutshell with power parenting, with a lot more detail, because there are 6 essential beliefs that parents have to have, and there's 6 essential strategies they must use at home. And all of those things are talked about in power parenting. Now, I think I mentioned to you, we put together 3 parts. Part 1, part 2, that parent's going to have a little problem there with that umbrella in that tsunami. And then part 3, she's going to have a little problem walking into that tornado. But these 3 parts made the basics for power parenting. And this will be free to all of your listeners. And I'll send you that link as we talked before the show, that this basically is a summary for those first 2 parts. And this will be free. All they have to do is click on it. They get the book automatically. We want to put this information out there. We want people to enjoy it. We want them to learn from it. Because parenting is that important. And your children are that important. They're everything. It's like we said, it's your legacy. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, no, it's all powerful things. And, just to let everyone know in the audience, all those links will be right down below. So don't worry, they're not going anywhere. This conversation is definitely just getting spicy. And I do want to, end on one of the more critical things on how do we optimize learning with our children or, with our school system, because you said going to Japan and then coming home, you said, what are we doing? Like it's night and day almost. And so I'm sure many parents are thinking of like, how can I optimize my child's education? I know some parents today, especially in our world today, from after the pandemic, many parents are doing homeschooling because they have lost faith in the school system. And so we can look at Sweden, New Zealand, China, even, like countries, Japan, who are doing phenomenal work in educating their youth and their children.
Right.
And we can look at how we're allowing our children to kind of be on their iPads and do TikTok dances all day. So I'm sure many parents are having the burning question of how can I optimize my child's learning and education?
Great question. And it's so simple. It's a simple answer, Michael. Okay. And that is simple by saying you learn with your child. I mean, are you interested in learning? Are you interested in science and in history and in life? Do you go to museums? Do you read books? Are you sharing what you know? I told you about the country life that we had, but we weren't just always when we're out in the garden, we're talking about plants and how they grow and photosynthesis and the soil. And my children used to come with me and dig manure and put it in. Why did you do that, Daddy? Why do you have that? Because there's nutriments in there. There's good stuff that goes into the soil. It builds the soil. And earthworms. Why are we buying earthworms, Daddy? But why? What I'm trying to say to you, Michael, is that living in a city is a good thing. There's a lot of museums. There's art galleries. There's theater. There's music. There's all kinds of culture. That's learning, Michael. You can't learn just in a classroom. Classroom's nice. You can learn a lot of things there, but real life is what you're experiencing every single day. Electronics, okay, well, how's it work? How's a computer work? Why does it work? I mean, it's just inquiring mind. So, how do you optimize learning? Be a learner with your child. You should, if you're sitting down in front of the television every night and you're not talking with your kids, what are they learning? So, we have telescopes here. We've got science stuff. My grandkids would come over and my wife would take out the telescope and we're looking at the eclipse. Why is an eclipse? Do you understand what I'm saying? Is that life is learning. Life is how does the car work? How does this work? How does that work? How about a machine? Let's cook. There's chemistry right there. Chemistry. Why are you putting baking soda in, Mommy? Why put in water? Why do this? Usually have your child cook with you. So, we were homesteading. We did a lot of stuff. Chickens, raising chickens. Where do the chickens come from? Where do the eggs come from? Why do we feed them? Life, Michael. And then there's, as I said, museums. There's all kinds of libraries and things. You take your kids places. Travel. Travel is people that travel and go places that are so unusual from where you live, okay? We live in the South, we have palm trees here. Well, how do they grow? Why do they grow here? How come it stops here in South Carolina? And you don't see a lot of palm trees in North Carolina, none in Virginia, West Virginia. Why does it stop? Basically, it stops right outside of Charleston, by the way, naturally. That's where they stop. Well, you talk about these things as you're driving, as you're visiting, as you're going places, the aquarium, science places, life. But if you don't talk with your children, if you're not interested in life and learning, the kid's not going to be interested either. So it's a chance for you to grow up. I think I may have said this. I know I said it in our book and so on, but I may have said it earlier. You really have 3 times to grow up if you're lucky. First is when you are a child. Now, you might have a bad mother and father. Maybe you only have a mother. Maybe you don't have, I don't know. But that's your first time. If you have insight, you can say, what's right? What's wrong? Is he lying? Is he doing what's right now? It doesn't seem good. That's the first time for you to grow up. The second time is when you are a parent and you're watching your child grow up. You grow up with them. You're learning. They're challenging you. They're listening to you lie on the phone to your boss about why you're not coming in. Okay? So that's the second time you have to grow up. And if you're lucky, you live long enough, it's when you're a grandparent. Okay? So now you have your grandchildren in front of you asking you what's right, what's wrong, and you're correcting them and you're taking them places and doing stuff. And so 3 times you have a chance to grow up if you take advantage of it to improve your own life, okay? So it's a challenge, but it's also a wonderful thing to be able to see child grow, make decisions on their own, to become their own adult, to become independent, and to be strong and confident and loving and kind. And that's a wonderful feeling. There's nothing that matches it, okay? It's worth it. So for your listeners out there, stick to it. Play the long game. Enjoy it. Have fun with it. Laugh. Kids are funny. They do some crazy things. It's all right. They dropped the bowl, it went all over the place and everything, but they were trying to stir it, it wasn't an accident. They dropped them with the eggs in it and everything, cooking with you. Okay. We clean it up, laugh, and we'll try it again. You see what I mean? But if you're yelling, you're nervous, you're upset, your boss yelling at you, and what do you do now? You drop that? Don't you know that costs money? What kind of life is that? A home needs to be a place for everyone to recharge. Recharge. The world out there is beating you up. They're knocking you down. They're making you feel terrible. When you come home, your wife, your children, okay, that's a place for you to love on each other and to rebuild each other and realize what's important in life and to refocus and laugh, enjoy, love. Yeah, you're going to have days where you feel like, gee, what in the world am I doing? I wish I could go on a vacation without my kids.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's normal. That's normal, but not every day. You should be thinking like that. If you are thinking like that every day, you're in the wrong business.
Hmm.
So, what I'm trying to say is that home has got to be and you, Michael, and your wife, you're the ones that create it. Okay? Power parenting. It's like perfect parenting. It's power parenting. You have the power because of your attitude. I want to read one thing to you, okay, if I can. Do you know Charles Swindoll? Have you ever heard of Charles Swindoll?
It's familiar. I'm not sure
Okay.
if I could pinpoint who he is.
Okay. He is probably one of the most prolific Christian writers. 400 books he's written. And he writes this, okay? It's a short thing, but listen to this. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It's more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that's our attitude. I'm convinced that life is 10% of what happens to me and 90% of how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. If you can work on that yourself and your child sees you doing that, they will pick up on that attitude. They will embrace that same attitude in school. They will be super students, okay? Attitude, gratefulness, thankfulness, all these things are vital to becoming a good person and a great student. And you're in charge of it. Viktor Frankl is a perfect example of this. During the Holocaust, he talked about attitude, about having a certain attitude about where the situation he was in. You've known people, I'm sure you have, where they have a wonderful house, a nice wife, a lovely wife, nice situation, and so on, and they're angry, they're mad, they have a terrible attitude. What do you think their kids are going to be like? See?
It's gonna
They're
be the
going to,
same.
yeah. Also, you've seen people that are poor, they have very little, but they're happy, they're loving, they're kind, they love their children, they love their wife, they love their husband. And all of a sudden, that home is a happy place. It's a place people want to be. Okay? It's not money. Money's nice, it's important, but that's not what makes you happy. It's attitude that does it all. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at. I'm 77 years old. Okay, my life is almost over. All right. I'm happy. I'm thankful to God every single day for every moment He gives us, okay? In every situation. Because I had nothing when I came into this world. And I'm gonna have nothing when I go out. So I'm doing pretty good right now. I have a wonderful wife, 55 years. She is the light of my life. She's the best thing to happen to me. I have wonderful children. I've got wonderful grandchildren. I'm a happy guy. You see what I'm trying to say? You got to be thankful for what you have and work on those things that are a problem. You can do it.
I think of there was a time I was in elementary school and they gave us all flowers, just some carnations to give to someone we loved, right? And I remember it was my grandmother, my great grandmother, and my mom. They were all there.
Okay.
And so basically, a lot of the kids were giving it to their mom. And so, and I remember I had like a split decision, like choice. Like I was like, am I give like which grandma, my mom? And I gave it to my great grandmother. And it's so funny because I saw my mom, she kind of rolled her eyes. She was like, oh, but she knew how, important she was. She lived until she was 99.
Great.
And so even though you say you're 77, I say and you say, you're at the end of your life, I say you're at the beginning of it. There's so much there's so much more for you to do, whether you like it or not. Like that love can come from all ages. That was my great grandmother. You have grandkids,
Wonderful.
you can have great grandkids. And so the cycle begins again. And I believe, longevity and long life is a huge proponent is if you have something to live for.
Yeah.
If you have kids and things like that, like they say, the statistics and the research show, if you live within 5 miles from your kids and your grandkids,
Yeah.
you live longer by like a certain percent. I forget the percent, but you can Google it. But that right there is already showing you that if you give yourself purpose, if you give yourself meaning, if you give yourself discipline, if you give yourself the aspect of being a forever learner, very similar to how you can optimize learning. You can also optimize your life and you could become more fulfilled. Very similar to how we talked about how you can have all of this money, be miserable and then you can look at someone who has nothing and they're so happy and they're so fulfilled. And so huge perspection in there. But this episode is definitely going to be a catalyst for many parents, many educators, and just people in all walks of life to take a step back and to look at where they're going. And as you said,
Absolutely.
there's 3 times when you grow up or something. You grow up when you're a kid, you grow up when you're a parent, you grow up when you have grandkids. My dad, he actually grew up when he had grandkids, and I grew up when I was a child. And
Sure.
so, we make forward progress and that is what parenting is. We're making forward progress and it's almost like passing the baton. It's almost like, you're giving yourself to your child and understanding that they're going to do something different, whether it be better or not, that's up for the world to decide or for you to decide. But I don't really have expectations for my children, just for them to be good people, good humans. And if
Exactly.
I could do that, I already won the battle. So, John, I could talk to you forever about, parenting and everything. But if you could, I would love to get some final words from you. So it could be anything you want to talk about. And then
Mhm.
also, how can people find you besides the links to the books?
Yeah. Well, they can find us on the web for sure, www.mjchanakapublishing.com. We have a website there. Tell us about our journey and how we actually got to be doing publishing. The publishing is actually Jane, myself, and my one son Joel. And we have 12 children's books and 5 more projects going for 2025. And it's kind of interesting. It happened during COVID. My mother in law, who was 95 years old, was living with us, and we couldn't go anyplace. She was in a wheelchair, she has dementia, and COVID was around. So we started publishing books because we were here every day. And we started thinking about our past and our children. And so we came up with all the various children's books that we were able to put out. They're all about our kids. We talk about legacy. Every one of these have those are my 2 sons right there. Jane and I are 2 sons. And some of these books have won awards, and we're just having a lot of fun with this. But there's shows you attitude right there. We had a situation where we could have cried about. We had been traveling all over the world, and then all of a sudden we were taking care of my mother-in-law. And we did that for 5 years. So that's how we got started in the publishing. I would say, as last words to your listening audience out there, is that enjoy your life. It's a short life. Even if you live to be 99, like your grandmother, it's a short life, okay? Enjoy every single minute of your life and ask yourself, should I be thankful? What do I have? I have my life, I'm breathing, I'm alive, I can see. There's people that are suffering like crazy. There's always someone who's worse off than you are. So just enjoy your life, enjoy your children, enjoy your wife, enjoy your husband, and take a deep breath. Okay, this is a long parenting is a long game, and enjoy it. But realize you're going to make mistakes. Pick yourself up. Ask yourself, what am I doing wrong? How selfish am I? Why shouldn't I do the dishes and do this and do that and enjoy my children? It's not going to kill me. You got enough energy. You can do this. So that would be my last thoughts. Is just really get involved and have some fun. Enjoy your kids and your family. That would be it.
Hmm. And I'm definitely going to put the website for the publishing. I saw some very interesting books for if you're an audio listener. Of course, you didn't see the books, but they looked very interesting. I'm definitely going to probably purchase all of them because, my kids are at that age where they're going to be reading so many books, and those books look like they're full of wisdom, where you can just read the story and you could just find goodness. And in life, there's going to be pockets of goodness there for you to look at. And I understand right now you might be inundated with a lot of work. You might be a busy parent and struggling to find time. And I encourage you to slow down because there's always going to be a pocket. There's always going to be an opportunity for you to focus on the things that matter.
Good
And
point.
one of the things I say to new parents that are especially entrepreneurs and are very busy, your children are going to be children once. They're going to be adults forever. So take this time, spend time with them, learn with them, grow with them. And then at the end of the day, you're going to be so more elated that you spent that time with them rather than worrying about the bills or hanging out with friends who might not mean anything, coworkers who come and go. That family is going to be there forever.
Good point, Michael.
So I
Very
do want to
good.
thank you, John, for coming on, spending some time talking about your work, talking about your stories, and then, of course, sharing that wisdom with other parents to take and impart into their children growing up.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate, and good luck with your coaching in session. I love your podcast. Listen to a couple of your speakers and so on, and just continue good work, okay? And God bless you with this.